Alright, first thing we have to do in this objective is know how to find the net force acting on an object, and in order to do that we've got to know what net force is. So here we go. Net force is just the sum means adding them all together, the sum of the forces acting on an object. So the sum of the forces acting on an object. It really is just as simple as that. That's all that net part of net force means, is that you're adding up all the forces together. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Suppose I have a big old box of widgets here, and we're going to push that along the ground. And I'm going to push it with a force of 50 newtons. And remember, the newton, abbreviated with a capital N, is the SI unit of force. So I push this with a force of 50 newtons. The net force on this object right now, so I would say the net force, notice we use the subscript net there, is equal to 50 newtons, and force is a vector, so we have to have a direction on this. So I'd say 50 newtons to the right. That is the net force because it's the sum of all the forces acting on this. There's really only one force, so that makes it easy to add in there. Let's look at what happens if it's not just one force. So let's suppose I'm still pushing with 50 newtons of force, and a buddy of mine helps out and is now pushing with a 20 newton force as well. Anytime we have forces moving in the same direction, or that are acting in the same direction, I should say, those forces will act just like one force equal to the sum of those. So if the forces are in the same direction, we can just add them together. So in this case, the net force acting on the object would be 70 newtons to the right, just like that. So again, forces in the same direction, you can add them together and treat them like they were one force acting in that same direction. Alright, what if, I hear you ask, we have forces not in the same direction? So I still have my 50 newton force to the right, just as I did before. Only now I have a force of friction equal to 10 newtons on this side. Forces that are in opposite directions will actually cancel each other out. We can find the net force here by subtracting them because they're in opposite directions. And what you'll do is subtract the smaller one from the bigger one. So 50 minus 10, so our net force is equal to 40 newtons, and it keeps the direction of whichever the bigger vector is. So in this case, 50 newtons is bigger than 10 newtons, so our direction is the same as the direction of the 50 newton force. So our net force is 40 newtons to the right. And really, that's about it for net forces. There are some more complicated things that we can get into in a later physics course, specifically what happens if these aren't in the same direction or in opposite directions. What if they're, say, at right angles to each other or something else? But that's a situation that we can tackle later. For now, just know that if you have two forces going in the same direction, you can add those together and treat them like one force. And if they're going in the opposite directions, subtract the smaller one from the larger one and keep the direction of the larger force.